My name is Albert, and welcome to Unknown Facts. I'm thrilled to have you join me today as we explore some truly fascinating and often counterintuitive aspects of our world. Have you ever imagined what would happen if a country suddenly became rich overnight? What if, seemingly out of nowhere, a nation found itself swimming in wealth, like winning the lottery but on a national scale? Imagine the possibilities, the potential for progress, and the eradication of poverty. It sounds like a dream, a utopian vision where everyone benefits from newfound prosperity. But history shows it can quickly turn into a nightmare. The reality of sudden national wealth is often far more complex and at times devastating than we might expect. When nations discover oil striking black gold beneath their soil, gold unearthing glittering veins of precious metal, or print massive amounts of money, believing they can simply create wealth, the results are rarely what people expect. The initial euphoria quickly fades as unforeseen consequences begin to emerge. Instead of prosperity, these windfalls often bring chaos, inflation, and even greater poverty. How can this be? How can more money lead to less wealth? Why? Because money is just a tool, a facilitator, a way to exchange value. It represents the goods and services we produce and trade. If you flood the system with cash but don't increase what people can actually buy, if the supply of goods and services doesn't keep pace, things fall apart. The delicate balance of the economy is disrupted, leading to instability and hardship. The value of money can vanish in an instant, eroding savings and purchasing power, leaving people worse off than before. The very thing intended to bring prosperity becomes the source of their suffering. Today, we'll explore real stories: Spain's gold rush and the pitfalls of sudden influx of wealth, the Dutch disease, a cautionary tale of natural resource dependence, and Zimbabwe's money-printing disaster, a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked monetary policy. These aren't just old tales relegated to dusty history books. They're warnings about the true nature of wealth, lessons that are as relevant today as they ever were. So, how can a flood of money make everyone poorer? What are the underlying mechanisms that turn potential prosperity into widespread hardship? Let's find out. We'll dissect these historical events, analyze the economic principles at play, and uncover the hidden truths about wealth and prosperity. Subscribe for more unknown facts and join our community of curious minds as we explore the world around us. As we dive into the surprising consequences of sudden riches, prepare to have your assumptions challenged and your understanding of economics deepened. Are you ready to uncover what really happens when money floods a country, to understand the complex interplay of factors that determine a nation's economic fate? Let's begin. Our journey into the world of unexpected economic consequences starts now. When we say money falls on a country, what exactly does that mean? It's a phrase we often hear in economic discussions, but let's break down the concept and explore its implications. We're talking about a sudden massive influx of wealth. It's not a gradual increase or a steady growth, it's an abrupt surge of money into a nation's economy. This can happen when a nation discovers oil, striking it rich with newfound natural resources. The discovery of a major oil reserve can transform a country's economic landscape almost overnight. Receives huge foreign aid, often in response to a crisis or as part of a development initiative. While well-intentioned, this influx can have unintended consequences, or simply prints more money. A government might resort to printing money to address short-term financial needs, but this can lead to serious long-term problems. Imagine billions pouring in overnight, a sudden surge of capital flooding the market. Sounds great, right? Who wouldn't want a windfall of cash? But this isn't wealth built through hard work or innovation. It's not the result of increased productivity or the creation of new value. It's a shock to the system, a sudden jolt that can disrupt the delicate balance of an economy. The economy suddenly has more money circulating through its veins. But the amount of goods, cars, bread, homes, the actual stuff people want and need, stays the same. The supply of goods and services doesn't magically increase to match the new money supply. That's the problem, a fundamental mismatch between money and value. More money chasing the same stuff, leading to increased competition and higher prices. Whether it's oil, a finite resource that can create booms and busts, aid, which can distort local markets and create dependency, or printed cash, a quick fix that can devalue the currency, the result is the same, an imbalance that throws everything off kilter. Prices rise and the economy struggles to keep up, leading to inflation and economic instability. This imbalance is the root of the chaos that follows. It's the seed of economic disruption. It's not about how much money you have, the sheer quantity of currency in your possession, but what you can actually buy with it. The real value lies in purchasing power, not just the numbers in your bank account. So, which is worse? Which scenario poses the greatest risk? Sudden resource wealth, the allure of instant riches from the ground, foreign aid, the promise of assistance from abroad or printing money out of thin air, the temptation to create wealth with the stroke of a pen. Each brings its own risks, its own set of potential pitfalls and unintended consequences. But all can turn a blessing into a curse. A seemingly positive event can quickly spiral into a negative outcome. Let's see how this played out in history. By examining past events, we can gain valuable insights into the potential dangers of sudden wealth. Ready for the first cautionary tale? A story from the past that highlights the complexities of economic booms and busts. Here we go. Let's dive into the lessons of history. 16th century Spain struck gold, literally. The discovery of vast reserves of precious metals in the Americas sent shockwaves across the globe, transforming Spain into a dominant world power almost overnight. This influx of wealth, however, would have unforeseen and ultimately devastating consequences. Tons of gold and silver, an unprecedented amount, poured in from the Americas, flooding the Spanish economy with seemingly limitless riches. The galleons, laden with treasure, became a symbol of Spain's newfound power and influence. The Spanish crown became rich overnight, amassing a fortune beyond imagination. The royal treasury overflowed, and the King of Spain found himself at the helm of the wealthiest empire the world had ever seen. Funding wars and lavish lifestyles, the newfound wealth fueled ambitious military campaigns across Europe and beyond, while also indulging the extravagant tastes of the royal court and nobility. Grand palaces were built, and opulent feasts became commonplace. But Spain's own industries couldn't keep up with the new demand for luxury goods. The sudden surge in wealth created an insatiable appetite for fine things, but Spain's domestic production struggled to meet the escalating needs of its increasingly affluent population. Instead of building up local businesses, Spain imported everything from abroad. Foreign merchants eagerly filled the void, flooding the Spanish market with goods from all corners of the world. Local farmers and artisans went out of business, unable to compete with the influx of cheaper foreign-made products. And the country's productive capacity shrank. Spain became increasingly reliant on foreign imports, weakening its own economic foundations. The silver flowed in, then right back out to pay for imports. The wealth that poured into Spain quickly drained away, leaving the country increasingly dependent on foreign economies. Prices soared, one of history's first major inflations. The abundance of silver devalued the currency, leading to a dramatic increase in the cost of goods and services. Everyday items became unaffordable for most Spaniards. The common people struggled to make ends meet as the cost of living spiraled out of control. Wages lagged behind, and the average citizen grew poorer. The gap between the rich and the poor widened, creating social unrest and widespread discontent. By the 17th century, Spain was bankrupt and in decline, its golden age fading into a distant memory. Despite its mountains of treasure, the vast wealth that had once fueled its power had ultimately become its undoing. The lesson? Real wealth isn't about gold or silver, it's about what your country can produce, the strength of its industries and the skills of its workforce. Sudden riches can hollow out an economy, leaving it weaker than before. A strong and sustainable economy requires investment in domestic production, education, and infrastructure. Spain's golden age turned out to be a cautionary tale, a stark reminder that true prosperity lies not in fleeting riches, but in long-term, sustainable growth. Let's see how this story repeated itself in modern times as we explore other instances where sudden wealth led to unforeseen economic consequences. Next stop, the Netherlands. In 1959, the Netherlands discovered a massive natural gas field. Great news, right? Money poured in, the Dutch currency soared, and imports became cheap. But Dutch manufacturing suffered. Their goods became too expensive for export, and factories closed. This became known as Dutch disease, when one booming sector kills off the rest. Talent and investment rushed to the gas industry, hollowing out other parts of the economy. When gas revenues fell, the country was left vulnerable and had to rebuild its industries from scratch. The lesson: sudden wealth can make an economy less diverse and more fragile. Winning the resource lottery can mean losing long-term prosperity. Now let's look at the most extreme case, when governments print money. Zimbabwe in the 2000s faced economic crisis and chose to print money to pay its bills. At first it seemed to work, but soon prices skyrocketed, hyperinflation took hold. People needed wheelbarrows of cash for a loaf of bread. The government kept printing bigger bills, but the money became worthless. At its peak, inflation hit billions of percent per month. Savings vanished overnight, people stopped trusting the currency, and the economy collapsed. Barter and foreign currencies replaced the Zimbabwean dollar. The infamous $100 trillion bill couldn't buy a bus ticket. Zimbabwe's story shows that money only has value if people trust it. Printing cash doesn't create wealth, it destroys it. The lesson: faith in money is everything. Now let's break down why inflation is so devastating. Here's how it works. Inflation means prices rise and your money buys less. If everyone suddenly has more cash but there's no increase in goods, prices go up. Businesses raise prices because demand outstrips supply. The result? Your savings and salary lose value. Inflation hits hardest for those on fixed incomes or with savings. They see their purchasing power evaporate. The cruel irony: a flood of money can make the most vulnerable even poorer. It's not the goods that are more valuable. It's the money that's worth less. Inflation is the hidden tax of sudden wealth. But how do people and businesses react when this happens? When new money floods in, people rush to spend, paying off debts, buying goods, upgrading their lives. It feels like a boom, but it's often just a bubble. Businesses raise prices and shift focus to serving local consumers. Non-tradable sectors like construction boom and retail boom, while export industries struggle. The economy becomes less diverse and more dependent on the money source. Jobs shift to booming sectors, but skills for long-term growth are neglected. When the money dries up, the party ends, leaving behind debt, unemployment, and a weaker economy. The initial euphoria masks deep problems. Real prosperity comes from building, not just spending. The challenge: how can governments manage sudden wealth wisely? Let's look at what works and what doesn't. Can governments tame the flood? Here's how some have tried. Governments can manage sudden wealth, but it takes discipline. One solution? A sovereign wealth fund, a national savings account like Norway's. Norway invests oil profits globally, spending only a small sustainable amount each year. This keeps the economy stable and avoids overheating. Another tool: central banks can sterilize foreign money inflows to control inflation. But these strategies require strong institutions and political will. The temptation to spend is huge. People want benefits now, not savings for the future. Many countries fail this test, squandering their windfalls. The real challenge is resisting short-term pressure for long-term gain. Is it fair to save for tomorrow when people are struggling today? The answer isn't easy. We've seen how sudden wealth can destroy economies and lives. The source and speed of money matter more than the amount. Wealth built slowly through innovation and hard work creates lasting prosperity. Sudden riches, whether for countries or lottery winners, often bring chaos and disappointment. The temptation to spend is strong, but the cost can be devastating. Real prosperity is about creating value, not just having cash. If your country struck it rich tomorrow, how should that wealth be managed? Would you spend it all, or invest for the future? The answer shapes not just economies, but lives. Thanks for joining us on Unknown Facts.